I actually want to print out these to see what was created. So I'm going to minimize this. So the first method I'm going to create is called public void printout. So what this is going to do is print out all the random checkpoints and where it was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a for loop so I can loop through this int k. Remember, I don't know how many points there are. Every time I do this program, it could be different. So I want to do elevation.length. I want to run through the length of the array, k++. And then inside of there, all I want to do is one line of code. I want to print out system.out.println. I want to print out the k. So what this will then allow us to do, it'll print the number 0 through, so checkpoint 0, all the way up to the last checkpoint and tab over. And then I'm going to, because actually I don't want it to print ln, I just want print. I want them right next to each other. So then system.out.println, I want to go down to the next line after the last one. Then I want to create another for loop. For loop k equals 0, k less than elevation.length, k++. Now I actually want to get the values out of the array. And it's going to be the same thing. I want to print, and then, but here instead of just printing k, I want elevation k. So the first for loop goes and prints the value k. Then the second for loop prints out the actual value inside the array. So, and hopefully now as you see this, we'll run it real quick. See it? It'll pop up here. I'll ask how many points would you, oh, I ran the wrong program. I run the driver. So here's the driver. How many checkpoints? 10 checkpoints. Oh, forgot to call the method here. So inside here, the method, you do hike1 dot. Okay, now Eclipse is beautiful because Eclipse ends up pulling up things for you. But if you go over here, hike1, here's the method called printout. You go printout. And now it knows, okay, hike1 tells you go to the hiking class. And when you go to the hiking class, go to the method printout. Remember, line 8, as soon as you do line 8, immediately goes to the constructor. So you run this here, how many checkpoints? 10, 10, and then it prints up there. Now if I did the program correctly and I would run it again, how many checkpoints? And I put in 10, 8, it's 8 different points. Every time we call this object, it does not remember what the other object did, and that's going to be very useful later. So there's the printout method. Okay, let's make another method here. So the next method inside of here is, find the peak. Public int find peak. Okay, because int is in the method heading, that means it's going to return an integer. And this integer is going to be the highest value. So the peak, remember when you start the trail, the very first checkpoint 0, that's your highest point. If you haven't been nowhere else on the trail, that's the highest. And then what we want to do is we want to loop through and check, are there any points higher? All I want to know is how high the 2 checkpoints are. So what I'll do is I'll loop through. Okay, 0 is our highest point to begin with. Then we'll go to 1, and then we'll keep going. Then I'll say if elevation k is greater than peak. This is going to loop through and check if any of the points are bigger than what we just set. If we're looking at something bigger than we said was the peak. And if we find something bigger than what we said is peak, that's our new peak. Peak equals elevation k. And then once we're done with that for loop, whatever peak is the highest point. So we do return peak. And that's it. That would find the highest point. So if you go back to the driver, now if we want to use this method, we go back to the driver over here. Okay, remember it's going to return it to the screen. So we want to have it print somewhere. So we're going to do system.println, and we'll say the highest point is, and then what we do is we say take hike1, the object, and go over to find peak. And it will run that method for us. And then it will find the highest value inside the array, which will represent the peak. I'm going to close this, create another little method, and then we'll say public int find valley. So the lowest point here inside the array list, not array list, the array. So then what we'll do is we've got a return method because there's an int here. So I'm going to set up the first value. Now when you walk on the trail, not only is the first point the highest point, it's also the lowest point. So I'm going to say that's the lowest point. Then you're going to loop through int k equals 1, and then k less than elevation dot length. So then you're going to loop through one by one, looking for, is there anything lower? Is elevation k, is the new spot 0, 1 going on, is it less than what you told me was already the lowest point? And if it was, valley equals that particular point. And once you have that and you loop through every single point, you found the lowest point. And what we'll do is we'll return that as the lowest point right there. And the same thing, we'll go back to the driver class. Now this method sitting here doesn't do anything until we call it. So inside the driver class, we need to go back over here. And we need to print out again because we're returning it over here. We wanted to do something with what we returned, getting some value for this. The lowest point is, and then what we'll do here is hike1 dot find valley. So now you're using these methods. Now if we run this here, we'll run it. Okay, how many checkpoints? And we'll do, let's just 5. So we check real quick. It says the lowest point is 97. That's great. The highest point is 97. The lowest point is 0. And that's pretty good. Let's just run again. Maybe just got lucky this particular time. Let's do 10. Okay, the highest it says is 89. That looks accurate. And the lowest is 5. That also looks accurate. There's one more method. I'll make that in the third video.